Episode 194 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, on today, October the 29th, 2023. How are all of you doing? You will notice the background today is a bit different since I have been evicted from the from my bedroom, from the Interpretation Station bedroom. I'm having to work today in the living room. No big deal. I'm just letting Mrs. Interpretation Station get some rest. We've been away for a long weekend, you see, with the kids in Chamonix, right? In Chamonix, in France. And we just got back this morning, bit tired. But I thought it's been a couple of weeks since I've made an Interpretation Station episode, and so I thought, you know, I'll adapt. Okay. Now, it's a very important episode we've got today. All Interpretation Station episodes are important, of course, but today in particular. So you may recall, actually, this is actually builds on the last episode I did 2 weeks ago, if you recall. So this is, you know, if it's for my Spanish-speaking viewers. 2 weeks ago, we did the episode Venezuela at the appearing before the Human Rights Committee. It was their introductory statement, and this was actually a meeting that I attended. Now, the Human Rights Committee is, of course, the custodian of the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It's one of the earliest sort of post-war human rights documents of all the, you know, of these treaty bodies and all these conventions. This was one of the first. Like I say, the Human Rights Committee is the custodian, and so Venezuela came before them a couple of weeks ago, and I was in that meeting, and oh my God, it was brutal. Okay. As I tell you in that other episode, absolutely hellish. And now the reason why I'm coming back to it is, well, first of all, obviously, you watch the previous episode, right? And there's many new words you can learn from this whole 6 hours of hell it was, right? You know, so it's the way these sessions work. You have 3 hours. It was 3 hours, like on the Tuesday afternoon, followed by another 3 hours on Monday morning. And okay, so the introductory statement was prepared, but most of it is just, you know, off the cuff, extemporaneous language, and you just are holding on for dear life. And this was such a controversial meeting. I mean, there was accusations being tossed, bandied about all over the place. Committee, you know, calling out the state party and vice versa, and it's you could learn so much from it. Now, the reason I'm coming back to it is because of a very useful feature I have actually discovered on the UN Conference Recordings website. Now, obviously, you may have noticed that the vast majority of my episodes, I'm taking statements that are generally pre-prepared, right? And we're breaking them down. There's, you know, sometimes the speaker might go off script, but generally it's, you know, it's pre-prepared statements I'm giving you. And the reason for that is because when they speak off the cuff, they don't tend to be speaking from a prepared statement, do they? So it's harder for me to get. It's much harder to find any hard copy. See, with the prepared statements, you know, these get delivered to us in the booth, and you know, we can sometimes we can prepare them and so on. However, there is a new feature now, as I say, on the conference recording websites, which should be of great help both to me in making future episodes, but to you also. And I will show you what that feature is. So I'm going to share the screen with you now. When I prepare these episodes for you, I always direct you to conf.unog digital recordings, okay? And we go down here, and I tell you, okay, so this meeting specifically was on the afternoon of the 10th of October, right? So what you do is, right, so here, organization, it's not actually listed here under the Human Rights Committee. You need to go to civil and political rights, right? Civil and political rights, so the CCPR, okay? It's a bit confusing. You expect to look for Human Rights Committee, but you won't find it. So for this one, you've got to go to CCPR, Convention on Civil and Political Rights. Okay. We know it was in, well, it was December the 10th anyway. And we'll just find that, we'll just scroll down to the 10th. Okay, so it was here, okay, October the 10th, and the meeting started on the afternoon of, October the 10th. And here you have the chair introducing it, and then Venezuela. This first statement here by Venezuela is when the head of delegation makes the introductory statement. Now, this new feature that is going to be so helpful to you is, if you look here, look, you see here, select audio language, English with transcript, French with transcript, Spanish with transcript. Now, what that means is that the whole meeting has got a transcript, not just the pre-prepared statements, but the whole thing. Now, what does that mean for us? Well, it means what we're going to do today is we're going to actually look at the statement that was not a statement, but the questions that were posed by one of the members of the committee, Mr. Quesada. I think it's Peruvian, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. But he's one of the I think he was one of the rapporteurs. And he's down here, look, H. Quesada. And now, okay, he did provide some documentation. I think he provided some notes as to what he was going to ask. But he was, you know, speaking very much sort of extemporaneously, off the cuff, as you'll see. And what happens if we press here? Now we want the Spanish, don't we? We're going to put it to Spanish with transcript, right? Let's find him again, Mr. Quesada. There he is, right? And look, if you look here in this meeting transcript, you'll now see what he actually says. Muchas gracias, Presidente. Buenas tardes a todos quienes... Okay, yeah, sorry. Buenas tardes a todos quienes nos acompañan en esta reunión, la sociedad civil, y también me sumo a la bienvenida a la delegación del Estado parte, agradeciendo de antemano sus respuestas. Now, it's not perfect, the transcript, but it's pretty good, actually, as you'll find. And the great thing is, what we're going to do here is we're going to look at, you know, you're under so much pressure here. At this meeting, I was interpreting pretty much doing full half hours. So you need to get you need to just make your life as easy as you can. And you just need to be sort of stripping down these statements to the bare bones when they're speaking. He speaks quite fast, okay? It's pretty clear though, but you've got to, it's all about stamina under these circumstances, and you have to try and save your stamina. And we're going to look at, you know, how we can sort of synthesize certain things he says, things we can edit out, delete, you know, shortcuts that we can do. Now, before we start, again, I would advise you, well, to practice this, obviously, by yourself. Now, there's no preparation for this. What I would actually advise you to do is to do the introductory statement by the Venezuelans. Watch the previous episode, okay? Because that gives you a lot of the background information in that. Give that a try, watch the previous episode. Then with that information you have collected, listening to that introductory statement, then you can make a stab at Mr. Quesada here. There's a couple of other rapporteurs who speak before him. You can do them as well. I mean, as I said, there's so much good stuff here. But that, at least if you listen to the Venezuelan introductory statement first, you'll have a bit of background. And then you can launch into Mr. Quesada. So then record yourself doing Mr. Quesada. And then come and watch the episode, okay? Print this off, you know. Once you've watched it, print this section off and see what see what tips I can perhaps give you. So we're just going to be going through the statement, through the transcript, okay? I'm not going to be... I think during the meeting it was my colleague who actually interpreted Mr. Quesada. So what I have done is on Word, I've just copy-pasted Mr. Quesada's statement here, put it onto Word, and we're just going to look and see what little tricks and tips that I can give you, how we can make this sort of statement, how we can make it as doable as possible, okay? Okay, so here we go then. So we've got our little pen here to work with. Does it work here? Okay, that'll do. All right. So, okay, muchas gracias, Presidente. Thank you, President. Thank you, Chair, rather. So these treaty bodies have chairs, and in this one it was a lady, Paraguayan lady. So thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon to all those que nos acompañan, who are with us in this meeting, civil society. You don't need to say who are accompanying us, just who are with us in this meeting. También me sumo a la bienvenida. This is a sort of set phrase that I will just churn out whenever I hear this. Me sumo with this kind of thing, you know, I want to join others in doing whatever it is, in congratulating. In this case, it's welcoming. I would like to join others in welcoming the delegation of the State Party and thank them in advance for their respuestas, their replies, their responses. Esperando que ellas contribuyan, I hope they will contribute to this being a effective, constructive dialogue. Pretty easy opening, okay? Now, I will be referring to en esta oportunidad. Now, this is a classic example, again, maybe when you have a situation like this and you got, as I said, you know the guy's going to be speaking for a while and you just want to be, as I say, saving your stamina, perhaps. This is the kind of thing that you can really drop, I think, en esta oportunidad. Just say, you know, I will be referring to 2 paragraphs de la lista de cuestiones. So this is actually a sort of a document that they have in the treaty bodies. They're called the list of issues. They sometimes call them the LOIs. So it's a specific document that they send ahead of, before the delegation comes to Geneva, okay? They send them a list of issues, a whole string of questions for them. So that's just a set name for the document. So 2 paragraphs from the list of issues, specifically para 5 on non-discrimination and para 12. Estas son las preguntas que quiero plantear en esta oportunidad. Again, this is the kind of thing you can sort of synthesize. You can just say, and these will be my questions. These are the questions I want to ask. You don't need to, again, go literally. These are the questions that I want to take this opportunity to ask. Okay. So after that relatively easy opening, now this is where things start to get pretty tricky now, okay? This suddenly goes up a gear here. In primer lugar, okay, first of all, in its response to the list of issues, the State Party reports that in March this year, La Sala Constitucional, so the constitutional chamber, when you're talking about courts, La Sala, the constitutional chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice, acogió la demanda de nulidad por razones de inconstitucionalidad contra el inciso segundo del artículo. Oh my God, this is hard, all right? Acogió la demanda. Okay, so generally this is going to be it upheld. That would be my first reaction, okay? So it upheld la demanda de nulidad. Okay, whenever it's anything to do with a nulidad, okay, you know it's going to be to strike down or to overturn. So I'd be saying something like upheld the action to overturn por razones de inconstitucional on grounds of unconstitutionality el inciso segundo del artículo 565. Inciso segundo, this is a word you're going to hear a lot when they're discussing documents, you know, paragraphs. Okay, it's a very editorial, sort of very editorial vocabulary, if you like. Subpara 2 of Article 565 of the Organic Code on Military Justice, lodged by the Ombudsman. And I think we just want to make a slight editorial correction there. Now, I really struggled when I did this just about half an hour ago, just to see how I would do it. I really struggled with this paragraph. I missed bits here. And how might we somehow, what's a good way of coping with this kind of sentence, okay? What sort of words can we drop? Certainly you hear acogió la demanda. Acogió la demanda de nulidad. You know, it's like, you know, I would probably say upheld the decision, the nulidad, turn the nulidad into a verb, to strike down, to overturn, like we said, on grounds of unconstitutionality. Now, I would certainly say here, el inciso segundo, I would probably just skip the inciso segundo if I was struggling. I would try and get the article. I think that's what matters more here. Article 565. And I think I heard, you know, you could, for this Código Orgánico de Justicia Militar, so the Military Justice Organic Code. could you try and just say the military justice code? Interpuesta. Okay, that is a word you want to have a couple of alternatives for. With anything to do with claims. Okay, to file, to lodge, to bring. I think maybe in the previous episode, I think I gave you some of those alternatives. Por el defensor del pueblo, that is certainly that's the ombudsman. Okay, el defensor del pueblo is the ombudsman. So perhaps again to go over again. So the full version would be, first of all, in response to the list of issues, the state party states reports that in March this year, the Constitution of the Supreme Court of Justice upheld a claim to strike down on grounds of unconstitutionality subpara 2 of Article 565 of the Military Justice Organic Code as brought by the Ombudsman. What did I say when I was doing it? Now, well, as I say, how could we just trim this? Firstly, in the reply to list of issues, State Party says that in March, maybe I would just drop of este año, just say in March, the Constitutional Chamber of the Supreme Court, just say the Supreme Court, Tribunal Supremo de Justicia, Supreme Court, acogió la demanda, upheld the decision to strike down. And I think when I was doing it, okay, para razones de inconstitucionalidad, I sort of dropped that because he suddenly caught me out with the speed. So I said perhaps he upheld the claim to strike down Article 565 of the Military Justice Code as brought by the Ombudsman. And por razones de inconstitucionalidad, it'd be nice to have it in, okay, on grounds of unconstitutionality. Again, it's not the end of the world. But if you miss it out, the sentence still sounds fairly cogent, shall we say. So, you've got to make these decisions, as always, in the moment. What can you afford to drop? What do you feel in the moment you can afford to drop without losing too much of the meat of the sentence? It's a tough call to make. Okay, and then la Sala Constitucional fijó efectos retroactivos de la declaratoria, en tanto la nulidad implicó una decisión derogatoria. So when I came to doing this, again, this is a very difficult sentence, okay? I think I said something like, the Constitutional Chamber gave retroactive effect to the declaration since striking down implied a repeal, which I think was a fairly reasonable effort. So, fijo efecto, so efectos retroactivos, certainly retroactive effect. So, gave retroactive effect. La declaratoria, I think, refers to its verdict. Okay. So, gave retroactive effect to its verdict or its decision. Keep it open. So verdict is or decision is a fairly neutral, non-committal word. So retroactive effect to its decision since la nulidad, striking down, involved una decisión derogatoria, involved a decision to repeal, a repeal. Horrible sentence. Okay. So we would say something like, we would recall that this provision, dicha disposición, penalized or sanctioned relations between persons of the same sex in the military in that regard. Podría la delegación informar? So could the delegation tell us, you don't have to report, if after the repeal, la derogación de la mencionada norma of the aforementioned norm, you have effectively ceased, discontinued criminal or administrative persecution in the military sphere against same-sex persons for having sexual relations. Something along those lines, okay? Make sure you remember this with this derogación, very important word, all right? Repeal. And we would also like to know what the situation is in the civil sphere. En relación a esto, maybe that's the sort of thing you could drop. You could drop again when you're interpreting this guy. We also tenemos entendido. We also understand, maybe just turn it into an also, we also understand that the criminal code does not sanction consensual relations between persons of the same sex. Nevertheless, we ask the question because, según nuestra información disponible, according to our information, on the 23rd of July 2023, 33 gay men were arbitrarily detained in the city of Valencia, Carabobo state. So, in a sauna in this neighborhood, accused of the crime of ultraje al pudor. So you want something that in English can more or less reflect this idea. Ultraje al pudor. Lewd behavior, indecent behavior, indecency. Charged with indecency, illicit association, and contaminación sónica, sound pollution. They were charged with the offence of lewd behaviour, illicit association, and sound pollution, even though the case was dropped a few weeks later. So yeah, find something, have something, especially when you're doing these sort of texts, you know, to do with law and order, law enforcement, you know. This is the kind of charges that you'll sometimes run into. So something, yeah, lewd conduct, indecent conduct, indecency, many of those. Now, there's a second question. According to information we received during 2022, a NGO, Organización Non Gubernamental, registered 96 cases of physical violence and incitation to hate and discrimination against LGBTQ plus persons. That's what that should read. Let me just correct that. Okay, so I've changed location again. Speaking of lewd conduct and indecency, so the funny thing was, as I was telling you about the case of the 33 gay men getting detained in Carabobo State, see, my kids were in the kitchen making, I don't know what they were making, brownies or something. I felt just a bit strange talking about this case. So I thought, okay, I think I'll come back. I think I'll retreat. I'm now retreated back to the bedroom, and now I can freely talk about the 33 gay men arrested for lewd conduct in Carabobo. Anyway, where do we get to? So, de los cuales cerca, so of these, around 21% were attributed to state agents and 13% to other influential persons. The committee would like to receive information on investigations llevadas a cabo, carried out by the Specialized Prosecutor on Protection of Human Rights. Okay, this bit is now going a bit more smoothly again, okay? So the committee would like to receive information on the investigations carried out by the Special Prosecutor on Protection of Human Rights and Gender Diversity with respect to cases of physical violence against LGBTQ plus persons, with more updated figures and indicating the number of denuncias penales recibidas, criminal claims received, criminal complaints, rather, complaints is perhaps the best word there for denuncias. Sentencias condenatorias, so guilty verdicts, I think we would say, perhaps most natural English. And what do courts do with guilty verdicts? I guess they hand them down. Guilty verdicts handed down by the courts, y las medidas de reparación, maybe just drop medidas to seek, and compensation given to the victims of these offences. With delito, I tend to stick with offence, crime, delito, offence. So yeah, or maybe or measures of compensation measures adopted for the victims of those offences. Yes, I have to just apologise for some in the transcript. It does a few weird things. I don't know, this LGBTEQ. That just means LGBTQ. That's just how I guess the machine heard that. So it should be LGBTQI plus. Okay, por favor, quisiéramos que informen. Okay, here, you know, literally, we would like you to please inform us as to the state of progress. So, you know, again, under these circumstances, you can just say, you know, please inform us as to how you're progressing with drafting a administrative procedure to guarantee change of name on grounds of gender, por razones on grounds of. Again, just keep it simple, all right? Just keep these kinds of interventions simple when you're interpreting. You don't need to replicate, word by word. You don't need to say, please, we would like you to inform us what the state of progress is with the drafting. So again, just say, please tell us how you're doing with drafting an administrative procedure to guarantee name change on grounds of gender. So, de acuerdo con lo establecido. So whenever you hear con lo establecido, a good solution is to say the provisions. So, in line with the provisions of Article 146 of the Civil Registry Law, I think when I heard that, I heard ley orgánica, everything's organic. I think I was just dropping the organic. I said something like the Civil Registry Law. That's the important thing to get across, right? That it's on the Civil Registry. Whether it's organic or not is not such a big deal, but it is important to know which law it is. So the Civil Registry Law. In your response to the list of issues, the State Party said that in November 2022, the National Assembly, together with the National Electoral Council and the, now again, this was a long name, Servicio Administrativo de Identificación Migración Extranjería. I said something like that the National Assembly, together with the National Electoral Council and the Migration Services, that was the word that sort of I managed to get a hold of in that Administrativo de Identificación Migración Extranjería. That's maybe the most important word. So I said, yeah, I mean, again, it would be the administrative services for identification and foreign migration. So again, it was, you read it out quite quickly, so I thought the important thing was to at least get migration. Had started drawing up this administrative procedure. Therefore, it seems very important if you could inform us on progress when it comes to developing this new instrument. So sorry, I'm just having to do a bit of make a couple of editorial changes myself, just as I'm going through this transcript, because it's, it's on the transcript, the machine's not picking up everything that was said by the speaker, so I'm just sort of making it a bit more, making sure that it flows a bit more grammatically. Okay, so I want to move now to para 12 of the list of issues, which is one of the questions referring to the right to life. First of all, in para 12 of the list of issues with respect to measures taken in the context of the National Plan for Comprehensive Prevention in El Cuadrante de Paz. So if you look these up, these are in the report, these were referred to as zones. El Cuadrante de Paz was referred to as a peace zone. It's one of these, initiatives that the government has launched in various parts of the country, I guess in violent neighborhoods, whatever, to try and lower levels of violence. I think you could even maybe refer to it as in the Cuadrante de Paz. But anyway, so I think I would say here something like, first, in para 12, the list of issues with respect to measures taken in the context of the National Plan on Comprehensive Prevention in the Peace Zone in 2019-2025. So carrying on here, so the committee requested statistical data on violent deaths broken down by gender, age, ethnic or national group, economic situation, indicating also the type or cause of violence. Asimismo se solicitó informar. So we also asked about, okay, again, don't feel again you have to use the exact same words. We also request you to inform us on. Just think how you would say it in English. How would you say it to a friend? We also asked about what measures had been adopted to prevent deaths as a result of prison violence, violencia intracarcelaria. Okay, I think in English we just talk about prison violence. I mean, I guess you could also say intra-prison violence. I mean, yeah, just as long as the committee members get the idea, that you're talking about deaths in prison. Okay. In the response to the list of issues, the state party se limitó a entregar only, just only provided generic information, saying that as a result of the Gran Misión, so these are these Gran Misión, these initiatives that Venezuela has implemented, which I think you could just use the cognate to describe them. Okay, they're a big thing for the Venezuelans. The Gran Misión, I think that's the kind of thing you can just give as the big mission, the great mission. In fact, looking on Wikipedia, I see they do actually call them the Great Mission, so maybe just call it as a result of the Great Mission, the peace zones. There's been a significant drop in the number of violent deaths, especially homicides. We reiterate then our request, la petición, for datos estadísticos precisos, for accurate statistical data on violent deaths since the start of implementation of the national plan, the aforementioned national plan. And I think this is again maybe a mistake in the transcript. Les voy a informar. So it's really, I think he wants the delegation to report. So could you please report on what measures have been adopted to prevent and combat violent deaths, including those committed by state agents, producidas por. Next question. Tengo la siguiente pregunta. So again, in this kind of style of interview, it's almost an interview, isn't it? Questions and answers. I would just sort of, keep it simple. Just say, okay, next question. Also in the response list of issues, the state party says that of the violent deaths of personas privadas de libertad. So you could say persons deprived of liberty. That's, persons deprived of liberty is an expression, but keep it maybe simpler. Just say deaths of detainees or inmates. I think are two very good words in this context. So in the list of issues, State Party reports that violent deaths of inmates in penitentiary centres, establecimiento penitenciarios, you can almost get away with saying prisons perhaps, have dropped significantly in the period 2015-2019, going from 103 inmates dying in 2015 to 44 in 2019. So again, be intuitive here. You don't need to say again personas privadas de libertad de falacia. You don't have to say moving from 103 persons deprived of liberty dying in 2015 to 44 persons deprived of liberty dying in 2019. No, in English we would just say moving from 103 inmates dying in 2015 to 44 in 2019. That makes perfect sense in English, right? In that regard, we would ask the delegation of the State Party to provide updated information on this point. Y asimismo solicitamos informaciones precisas. You can just say here, please provide updated, or please provide accurate information on measures adopted in the last 5 years to prevent deaths as a result of prison violence. Okay, something like that. And then we go. Finally, I'd like to ask, desde la sociedad civil, so in Spanish, this is a sort of common stylistic way of saying, okay, in English we say civil society has said this, that, or the other. In Spanish, desde la sociedad civil se ha manifestado. Okay, we don't have something equivalent really in English to sort of replicate that. So we, don't let that sort of thing phase you. Just say, so civil society has stated, so we would just drop the desde, in all the statements at the Human Rights Council, whenever they have NGOs speaking, whatever, a lot of them will say, desde la organización, blah, 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 se ha notado, okay, blah, blah. It's just a sort of stylistic instrument, a stylistic flourish, So don't, as I say, in English, just play it straight. So civil society has stated that deaths in custody in the state, including those taking place in recintos carcelarios, again, just say prisons perhaps, in penitentiary centres, are not properly, swiftly or impartially investigated. When I got all three adjectives or adverbs, but if you got two adverbs in, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Please provide statistical information. Okay, it's just please, right? Podría, just please provide statistical information on investigaciones penales, criminal investigations conducted to investigate these deaths, indicating the number of guilty verdicts and sentences for the perpetrators. Okay, again, these are important. Sentencias condenatorias, guilty verdicts, penas, sentences, responsables, perpetrators. I mean, you got a full package there of that's a real, real crucial law and order, criminal justice vocab, if you like. Again, asimismo rogamos informar. Again, it's very sort of, again, this quite high register, but again, under these circumstances, just say, just please inform us about investigations that have been launched and their results or their findings with respect to the death of, I think there was 46 people. I think, again, another little typo here. Yeah, I think this was a figure. I think it was 46 people in the penitentiary center in the Los Llanos. In the Los Llanos penitentiary center in Guanare in the state of Portuguesa. I think this is one of the bigger prisons in Venezuela, Los Llanos. Okay. Thank you very much, and again, quedo atento a la respuesta de delegación del Estado Parte, and I look forward to hearing the responses of the State Party. There you go. Just keep it simple. That is, again, I think the most important lesson from these kinds of statements. Don't look to replicate always the words that the speaker is using. Just sometimes, this is a classic example of certain expressions which you can just skip or synthesize. What's important here, no one cares really about how stylistically well you deliver these questions. Okay, the people who are listening here are the committee members. All they care about knowing is what specifically does Mr. Quesada, what statistics, what facts, what information is he looking for. They're not really all that bothered if you're stylistically delivering the full names of the Supreme Justice Tribunal. Okay, if you just say the Supreme Court, for example, they're going, oh, okay, Supreme Court. The Constitutional Chamber of the Supreme Court did this, that, and the other. So this is very much what you're looking for here. You really are looking for the substance. The style here definitely takes plays second fiddle to substance in this case. Sometimes it's not always the case. I mean, sometimes, in these statements that delivered the General Assembly of the Human Rights Council, you want to try and match the style often. Here, the style's not as important. Here, what really matters is the substance of what Mr. Quesada is asking. So I think you will find this extremely useful. Okay, now you can practice now not only your sort of set piece statements like we've done in previous episodes, okay, the sort of ones that are prepared in advance, but these more off the cuff statements, and we're going to do more of this kind of thing, looking at just ways we can just edit, simplify, etc., while keeping all the, like I say, while keeping all of the substance. Some very important criminal justice words. Remember, derogación, repeal. Remember, find a good solution for something to do. Al pudor, ultraje al pudor. That sounds like something from the Spanish Inquisition, eh? Like getting tried for public indecency, lewd behaviour. I keep thinking of, whenever I hear of that sort of crime, the main thing that comes to mind is poor old George Michael, back in the day when he got charged with whatever it was. But anyway, it's an important offence to have a more or less a like-for-like equivalent for in English, and also in terms of just editorial vocabulary. This inciso, you run across this all the time in the UN when they're drafting documents. Inciso just means subpara. Often they'll say also Roman 1, Roman 2 for the subparas, but okay. I think in this case, obviously, we'd said that what was important here was getting the article number across. Less important the the sub-para, but okay, inciso, if you're sort of new to, if you're coming to work in an international organization, that's the kind of drafting vocab you will need to be able to process very smoothly, okay? Because when they're drafting, you know, the other colleagues, they need to know what you're specifically referring to, which part of a text you're referring to. So that's the kind of word that I perhaps wouldn't have known when I first started at the UN, and I probably had to learn it the hard way. You know, you hear it and you make a mistake, and your colleague probably says, "Why aren't you saying sub-para for inciso?" That's often how you learn some of these things. You have to do it having to do it the hard way. But anyway, okay. Well, if you found this episode useful, you know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe, and please do leave comments for anything that anything new you've learned, or any other suggestions that you might have. Maybe there's something I forgot. As I will leave a link to the updated version. I will just edit this transcript. As I say, I copied and pasted, and I kept on having to stop as I was going through it just to touch up a bit, because there were certain things that had been missed out. But anyway, I will leave the link to the statement by Mr. Quesada and the transcript in the description box, and that's pretty much all for today's episode. All that means I need to go back in and get my my gavel. So yes, all that remains to be said is that episode 194 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.
The train is now leaving the Interpretation Station. We hope you enjoyed your visit.